Okay, all right. We are super excited today, guys, because I personally have the privilege of introducing a dear friend that I've had, again, the privilege to work with over the last several years. She's closed many real estate transactions for me, so I am speaking from personal experience. She's
Just for
amazing.
you, not for me.
Well, okay,
Oh,
you too.
okay.
All right, fine, for both of us.
Thought I was in on the deal somewhere. Anyway,
Name is Beth Jourdan. Now, Beth is a senior mortgage loan originator with Tidewater Mortgage here in the Hampton Roads region, and she is killing it. The girl is a beast, right? So I'm just honored to have her on the Rod and Jen show, like I always like to say. Doesn't like for me to say that, but anyway.
you're talking. It can be whatever show you want.
So Beth is dedicated to making her home financing experiences pleasant one. And like I said, I can speak from experience. All of our transactions have been so pleasant, right? She prides herself on exceeding her customers' expectations at every stage of the process, from a complimentary pre-qualification through an on-time closing. Now, on-time closings are priceless, and she is the queen of doing that. As a senior loan officer with Tidewater Mortgage Services, she has access to a variety of loan programs and has an experienced support team, which is really cool. She's going to talk a little bit about that.
Very important.
And they're so focused on home financing. So I'm going to let Beth talk to us today about, some of the unique ways that a real estate investor or a new real estate investor can get started in the game of real estate investing. She's got some really unique ways of going about doing that. She's going to talk a little bit about herself and what she's done and all of her experience. She's been an entrepreneur like all of her life. I think she was born an entrepreneur like you.
Love entrepreneurs. Gotta love the entrepreneurs. We make the money flow through the country.
There you go. Without entrepreneurs, things don't move, right? So
That's what I say.
anyway, Beth, welcome. We're so happy to have you here. I know you're busy, so for you to carve out some time to join us today, it's just like I said, we're honored to have you.
Well,
Absolutely.
thank you so much, Jen. It's always a pleasure to connect with you guys, to be with you guys, and definitely to work with you. And I feel honored to be a part, and I couldn't be more excited for you guys and the path, and that you asked me to be a part. So thank you.
You're so welcome. So Beth, tell us a little bit about, tell us about what you've been doing and what brings you to where you are right now. I mean, I know you can't go through every single thing, but just tell us a little bit about your background and why you love this crazy real estate business.
Well, my mother was in real estate growing up, so
Oh,
I've
okay.
been around it my whole life. And I started at a young age as a business owner. I knew for me, the job path I wasn't going to be as successful in that, maybe because I had an issue with being on time for anything. So I thought when I got fired from my first job, I thought, okay, I better figure this out. So that just kind of took on a life of its own because I knew my limits, and that was one of them. So
That's so interesting.
I was notoriously late for everything. And so I certainly have gotten better at that, over the years, but it just forced me down a different path. And so, mortgage lending actually was really my first real job ever.
Okay.
And, I had other jobs while I owned businesses like bartending and waitressing, but that was something that you could do on the fly for extra money. It wasn't something because I was running businesses or whatever. And then I kind of migrated into construction. I was in the wallpaper industry. My mother ended up with a decorating center, and then down the road, I ended up with a decorating center. And I'm telling you, you would be shocked at some of the things that I've owned in my world and in my life, and how all the things that I've done. And from cooking school for kids to trash and recycle companies to, it just fitness centers, the list goes on and on. So anyway, so what for me was the common theme or thread for me was service. I've always been in the service industry. I've always been a part of assisting in some capacity to make someone's life better or share what I've learned or knowledge, became a mentor sort of by accident. It wasn't a life path or goal, but it just sort of, attracted itself to me or me to it, or whichever way you want to look at it. And I couldn't be more excited about those choices that I've made. So that got me into mortgage lending. And, with a real estate background, I've always been interested in construction and real estate and building and commercial and residential and all the things. So this was a perfect segue for me. I love the industry, love money. I love being in charge of myself and being, my own boss. And this was a job that allowed me still to build what I saw for myself. There was no limit on what I could do or see in the marketplace, and continue on the path of helping others and, mentoring and coaching and all the things that I still do. So, yeah. So
That's awesome.
Yeah,
Wow.
it is. Well, Beth, in all of our years of, investing, which is quite lengthy, because we've been doing this probably right at 30 years, and we've dealt with a lot of, mortgage lenders, brokers, mortgage companies, banks, and, probably the number one thing that Jen and I have always kind of discussed on our end as business owners is you deal with the people that don't really have what I think to be a passion for it. So they just do it, it's a paycheck, and they're not very good at it. And we've run into a lot of that over the years. So, you're thinking everything's ready, we're going to go to closing, everything's on track, and 2 days before we get a phone call, you need 5 forms and 6 other things, and and so it
And
really
that
is.
usually happens from them. It's a lack of their service.
Right.
Not, because
Right.
it does happen like right before closing. We get that. But to your point, you're right. I mean, some of that is just their lack of attentiveness.
Right. So
to the
to get
transaction.
someone that's conscientious about it, like you've been with us on all the stuff we've done, it is refreshing, and it does make the process of doing what we do in our business a lot better. You have someone that's very disciplined in it, very good, has a good team, knows the process well, explains everything, and then stays on top of stuff.
Yep. Exactly.
Yeah.
So talk to
thank
us,
you.
Beth, about. Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, and I agree with that. I agree. It's important to stay on top of it and set proper expectations for everyone involved.
So if you have a first-time investor come to you and say, Beth, where do I get started? I want a loan to buy this house as an investor. What would you say to them?
Yeah, that's a big question, because first-time investor, so they could be already positioned and poised by having great saving habits, great credit habits, impressive credit scores, so incredibly important. And what I see for a lot of the young investors, first-time home buyers that become investors, everybody's made a mistake in their credit once. Everybody was young or reckless, not everybody, but most people have wrecked it for at least one time. And the benefit is, you don't know where to go if you don't know where you are. So you have to start. You can have those goals. They can be big, they can be lofty, but if you start where you are right now and someone's not going to guide you, it just falls flat. So I think preparation is key. Getting involved, talking to the people that can guide you are key, and especially if you need credit repair. That's the first thing. So if they're coming in as an investor with money, that's a different scenario than someone who's starting out as a first-time home buyer turning into an investor. So 2 totally different paths. Down payments, totally different, or the pathway to success. So I deal with a lot of young military families, either married or single, a couple of buddies, one who's already got it together with his credit and purchasing, and then recognizing that's his pathway to start investments.
So what do they do in that case? So they'll get together and they'll buy the house together, and one moves out, or they both move out and they rent it out, or how do they do that?
Well, there's with the VA, especially the VA, and now it can be applied to other loan programs as well, because first-time home buyers have a unique advantage of a smaller down payment. They all programs out there that could benefit them. And right now, in this crazy market, people feel like it's not time to buy. The rates. But truthfully, it's a great time to buy, because if someone is subpar in their credit, the first-time homebuyer programs really give them an edge, because they don't differentiate with if you're in the program, you're in the program. There's no difference with a minimum 620 score or a 740 score. It's no different. You still get opportunities for first-time homebuyers, which could be down payment assistance, could be closing cost assistance, it could be a combination of both. It could be a plus loan, a lot of different variables for first-time homebuyers. And why I'm saying that's unique right now is, and somebody with really good credit can get better rates, but a lot of times they don't have the money.
Yeah.
So the program, so it's an equal playing field. It opens the opportunity for anybody in that pathway, and that's what's so great about it. So with the speaking in military itself, in that plan, if they can go on a loan together. So
Okay.
two military, active duty or veterans, if they have entitlement, they can do dual entitlement, because that's the only way they can go on the loan together, unless
Okay.
it's their spouse. So that's the one difference. So now in some cases I see them, one will do one loan and they'll live together, and one will use their entitlement and they'll just live in the house together. A year typically is a good rule to follow.
Okay.
So that you're not breaking any guidelines, and what VA is a little strict, FHA is a little strict, and 6 months minimum conventional. That's a different product. That's usually with somebody who has got a little bit of money under their belt and really good credit. That's the thing with conventional that makes the difference, is much stronger credit. So I think people get afraid of the PMI mortgage insurance that comes with like an FHA loan, but they just came out this year reducing the PMI, primary mortgage insurance. So it's reduced it quite a bit, puts people back in the game. And then the goal would be for the investor buyer, that they can switch that out once they gain some equity. Can we go into depth about that? It's unique to each individual program. But going in together with another buddy, he buys the first one, they're in it, they live it for a year, rent it out, buy the next one on the other one's eligibility. That's a great place to get started. And,
Okay. Good. I like that. So they move in together, they stay there for a year, they rent it out and buy another house or whatever. They stay in that one for a year. Can they do it again?
Absolutely.
How many times can they do it? Huh?
Primary residence. Has to be a primary residence. That's the key. It has to be primary residence. If you're doing strictly investment, that's again changes the whole program. If they're moving in as a primary residence, that's where the benefits come in. So if you're staying in it, so these young people that are not ready to get married, it's a perfect to set them up.
100%.
Now, with their VA, they can use it as many times as they want, as long as it's primary residence. Primary. Now, with the VA, what comes into consideration is the eligibility. So they're going to be using partial eligibility. So eventually, they're going to need to refinance one of those properties out of the VA to release their eligibility. So if they're starting out with, decent, first-time home buyer price points, 250, 225, 175, it's a townhouse, depending on the area, taxes, all those things. That's a great stepping stone, because the limits go up for their eligibility allowance. So they can fit a couple of them in there at a time. So while they're building up more money, while they're doing all of those things, then they can refinance maybe the first one to get release their eligibility.
All right, so
there's no down payment in a VA.
I know, it's amazing.
Now, does VA allow for like some of the other loan programs where they could buy, say, a multi-unit and live in one?
They can.
Duplex, okay.
1 to
And
4
so that
units.
1 to 4 units. Okay, so let me walk through a scenario. So it's not a VA person. Let's say it's an FHA person. They buy a primary residence. They stay there for a year. They move out and put a renter in there. They buy another primary residence. They stay there for a year. They move out and put a renter in that one. Now they're on their third one. What do you look at as it relates to the rental properties that they've now created that are trailing behind them? When they go to qualify for that third primary residence, right? You're looking at those leases from the other houses that they're now renting. And I know you don't count 100% of the lease amount, do you? I mean, what's the rule on that now? What are you looking at back there?
Okay, so the look backs are if they have not had it a year.
Okay.
And so if they have not had it a year, then we can use the lease, and it offsets. You cannot take any of the overage. Let's say it's $1,000 a month mortgage, you're collecting $1,500 a month rent. You can't use that $500.
Okay, I see.
Qualifying income. So
Okay.
you have to have a history of it being on your taxes, have claimed the income first and foremost before you can ever use it.
Okay.
And then the loan programs are going to dictate whether you can use 75%, 100%,
Okay.
and,
So it
and how
depends.
much of that money that you can claim. But it
Okay.
eventually has to go on your taxes. So you
Okay.
can't do it, pocket the money, and then not claim it, because
Right.
you have to claim it.
Well, that would be if you did pocket the money and not claim it. That's not what we're teaching. We're
No,
teaching how to
no.
run a business.
Yeah,
You
this
know what I
is
mean?
business.
And you do your taxes. That's important, and you do them accurately. That's
Well, that'll come back. That will show
yeah,
up. It will definitely show
100%.
up. So
100%.
that's why I'm saying file the taxes. Don't wait, because it's going
Yeah.
to show up, because they want
Glad
to know
you
where that
mentioned
money's coming from and how that's getting paid. If you're trying to qualify for something else, well, first off, that's the other caveat. If you're not filing it on your taxes and you can't show proof of rent, you're counted for that entire mortgage payment. So it
Exactly.
falls flat. So
Right.
and yeah, so you got
Okay.
to follow guidelines, 100%.
Okay. So now I'm on the fourth house. Is there a limit to how many houses I can buy as a first-time homeowner, and how many rental properties you will allow me to have before you start to get uncomfortable with me?
Well,
Or is
first
there
time
not?
home buyer. So let me make a distinction. First time home buyer offers programs as first time home buyer. You can only be first time home buyer once.
One time, right?
Unless you do not own real estate or properties for a 3-year period, then
Okay.
that qualifies you. But if you have a history of rentals where if you own a home and the deed on the note on both, of course you have to be on the excuse me, deed if you're on the
Mhm.
note, then you are no longer a first time home buyer.
Okay. So now I'm not a first-time home buyer. I'm a third-time home buyer, fourth-time, whatever.
Mhm.
That's right.
I can do it again.
The rule, oh, of course, yeah, you can.
Okay.
This is a primary
Right.
residence is the key, because that's where your rates are going to be back. They're going to be
Yeah.
less than
Yeah,
in
yeah,
a
yeah.
property. Your down payment isn't as much,
Right.
So that's where those come in. Primary residence is the key, and that's why some people starting young is so beneficial, because they have less and they can move.
Yeah.
And have
Right.
family and worry about school districts and all of those things, or even young couples. I have young couples that do it too, even with small children. They
Yeah.
want to move in, they want to make some upgrades, they want to move on. And
Yeah,
that's
we did that.
Yeah, we did that
When we were starting out.
early on when we got together.
Mhm.
We did that a few times, and then we were building houses. So we built a new house and stayed in it for 2 years and then sell it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
right.
Uh,
Yeah, my whole family, I think, did it. Are you kidding? We lived with, tarped walls.
Yeah, we've done a little of that.
Yeah, but the beautiful thing about moving out, renting it out, and then going and buying another one as your primary residence, you get that 3.5% down payment or whatever,
Mhm.
program you're going in, and you're not having to come up with 20% down as an investor, and you're still counting. I guess what I heard you say was, if you've been doing this a while, let's say you've been doing it for 3 years and you've been reporting it on your taxes, reporting that income, you would then, Beth, count the lease on those properties that are trailing behind. I don't know what percentage, 80% of them, or
75% typically is the rule, and
75,
then
okay.
it depends on the loan program and
Okay.
whether it's only taxes, because in some cases you can offset it all. The main thing
Okay.
is you're going to pretty much be able to offset unless your rental amount is less, like condo fees will put
Sure.
some over, things like that. So you might have to have a little bit, but that's the key. So let me address one more quick thing. As you're
Okay.
moving forward to qualify for these new properties as primary residence, you have to have money in reserves. So you need
Okay.
what reserves
point.
means is you need to have money in savings, retirement. So the young military guys have TSP. So that counts. You don't have
Okay.
to use it. 401k programs, if you're non-military, that counts as reserves. Reserves,
Okay.
Okay.
you have to have X amount of dollars in savings per unit. And it
Okay.
can be 3 to 6 months of the mortgage payment for
Okay,
each
there it is.
one you own.
Okay, gotcha.
So-
That's important. Thanks for bringing that up.
Sure.
Appreciate that. So I want to go back to the 4 units that Rod mentioned earlier. So you would allow someone to buy a 4 unit, live in one, rent out the other 3. When
That's
they
a
get,
win.
huh?
That's a huge win.
Oh, I know, right?
I'm gonna throw something in because going back as a vet, because I've used my VA a number of times. We don't use it now where we are, but
Mhm.
I've used it a number of times over the years. And the one thing that I wish now, going all the way back, that I knew was each place that I've lived, because I lived in multiple states, and I did purchase But I could have purchased a multi-unit, stayed in one, left, and then would have had a multi-unit building, went to the next place and bought another multi-unit. And instead of having a single family house in all these locations, you could build very quickly like that a portfolio over 5 to 10 to 15 years,
100%.
of doing that every couple of years, every 3 years, and then building the income reserves is a lot easier because if you got 3 units in the building, you're staying in one of them, and assuming they're probably, I'm sure the 3 units are covering the mortgage, it should be
100%.
really easy to stack up a little reserve money before you leave.
Man, I want to do that.
Yeah.
Let's move into
Yeah.
a
So
a 4-unit building.
just getting older, all that moves. We just I'm not, unless it's in St. Petersburg, Florida, then I would consider it.
Well, I'm going to ask Beth, where do you guys live? Just in the Hampton Roads area, Beth? Where
Oh,
there?
no. We're multi-states.
Okay,
Yeah,
all right, good.
multi-states, mostly on the East Coast.
So when it gets to the 5th unit, if I have a 5-unit building and I come to you, what are you going to say to me?
Good job.
It's 5.
Good job.
No, it's 5 units. Things change at the 5th unit,
you
right?
said 5 units.
Yeah, 5-unit building.
Well, your reserves are going to be important, but you can have 10. Typically, the rule is 10 in your own name. Then you have to start developing a company. If you're going to be that aggressive and you're going to your goals are lofty, then you're going to have to create an LLC and move some of them out of your name. Then that starts to become a whole different lending platform, because now you're a bona fide investor, and then it makes primary a little different because you have 9 other units, and depending on where they are, that's a lot of income if you're counting 3 to 6 months reserves. So keeping that. So now by then you're more skilled. They've paired with you guys to really get what that looks like down the road. Some of the loan programs may be different because it's going to depend. Are all of them rented well? Have you been claiming all your taxes? How many of them are new? How many of them have you only had for a year? That starts to get a little bit more intricate. So
let me ask you this. So this is my first time investing, or maybe I have one, and then I come to you and I'm looking at a 5-unit apartment building.
So it's more.
Remember, 1 to 4 units for primary.
So you're going to tell me I can't help you because now you've leaped over into what you would consider investment or commercial space or whatever, residential but commercial. Okay. And that's important for people to know too. This is why we have you and other lenders that that lend to investors that are doing multi-unit. So your category is a little bit different. So that's good to know.
But this is good.
Correct.
But what you do and what we tell a lot of people, because they don't really see a way in which they get in and start investing, and they assume that all of it is like an investment loan. All of it is like you're going to the bank and it's like a big commercial deal or something. And we start small and get in, and you can do it this way, where especially with a duplex. I like the duplex or the 4-unit thing. I mean, and if you can, and especially when you got younger families, like you said, where you're not worried about school district or whatever, or single folks, you can buy in areas that might have a, like in our area, the shipyard, or the port authority, or you're working at one of the Amazon or something like that. So you move close, and you got great tenants that rent, and you're not worried about like school districts and stuff like that. But you're going more where the high end or blue collar workers are, and you always get great tenants in those areas, which is one of the things that we like, because it's always a demand. So you can pick that. So this actually works to that too.
Yeah.
Absolutely. The other thing about it too is, even if so let's say the investors are not interested in going down the rental path, or the multi-unit, or maybe they do the multi-unit and they decide to stay in it a little bit longer because it's an up and coming place, or it's a neighborhood where they got one that's probably a little subpar, people don't want, but it has to be safe, sound, and secure, number one, to be able to get primary, to get lending, to get funding. So once it's safe, sound, and secure, maybe not pretty, and they're handy, or over time, they're going to say, you know what, I'm going to rent these out to a couple of my buddies, I'm going to live here. I'm really handy. I'm going to fix it up. And then in 3 years, they've really done improvements that will add value to the home, and they sell it. And then they can start doing a little bit more along the lines, Rob, what you prefer. And because they don't have to necessarily keep it, they could sell it and make $100,000. You know, people, you know, down the street have all renovated as well, and they've done outdoor living spaces, upgraded bathrooms and kitchens. You know, the higher price point things, and because they just took their time, collected rent from their buddies, you know, and you know, people they trust, and it's worked out. So, you know, that's a whole other way to go.
For sure. And then you can even talk.
3 kids that are doing that, and they've done it. I think this is their 3rd time.
Wow.
And just sold the house, and you know, so it gives them the ability, so they can do it twofold. You get either stepping stones to get into the bigger family house because they've already started their family, so great for young couples to be able to do it and keep their mortgage relatively small if she wants to stop working or whatever. And now they still have all that equity in that primary residence, that anything ever happens or they're ready to move and they don't want to be renters, or have renters, they can still turn over these investment properties and have the big win with some cash.
So talk to us about the 203K program. Is that's still out there, right?
It is actually. It's kind of a little bit more popular now because inventory, as we've seen right now, is a little bit low. So it's funny. It's so ironic in situations or times like this that inventory is low. So anyone and everyone throws everything on the market, and you're like, okay, that's going to be
try this. Throw that out there.
I'm like, wow. And so there's those properties out there for sure. So the 203K loans give buyers the ability to fix things before moving in. So now there's different guidelines. You know, there's FHA, of course, and the convention, and VA. So different amount limits, different, whether it's structural or limited. So structural is a whole nother ball game, but it's not something to be afraid of. The key is they have to qualify for the amount of the improvements and be able to carry that mortgage. So the 203Ks are geared toward, this house is underpriced or undervalued. With the improvements, it's going to bring it up to the neighborhood, and they can still qualify.
So they get qualified on the after repair value then.
That's correct. It's a lengthier process. It's definitely a lengthier process. Sometimes they can't live in it. So there has to be other, you know, accommodations available. They have to be prepared for that. And then in some cases, their payments for up to 6 months can be financed in. So now again, do you want to finance into payment? You know, that's a lot of money to finance into your loan. It is available if it's a must-have. If it's a must-have thing, you know, as investors, you know, we could be on the fence for that, but in some cases where that's what you've got to do to get the win, you do that because you know it's going to come back to you down the road.
And they can use that 203K again on anything up to 4 units. So it can be a 203K also on a multi-unit building, correct?
And they can do them on multi-units, and yes.
That's awesome.
Again, having to qualify for all. So that's another thing. If you're talking 4 units and 4 units need stuff,
that's a lot of work.
You're really up in the game. So depending on where your buyer comes in, absolutely, where they're
now back in the day, I used to, matter of fact, that's how when Jen and I met, she did a 203K, and I was her contractor, and that was
he did a really good job.
And that was before we got married, and I thought she was a cutie, so I kind of really poured it on and gave her extra stuff, you know, fixed little extra things. And then she thought I was so great. So you see how that ended up, right?
Yes. She still thinks she's great.
Yeah, she bought a nice little townhouse up in Alexandria, Virginia.
That was my start.
And and we kept that place actually for a while and rented it.
I wish we still had that.
But went in and we put in put the carpet in for her, painted, did the kitchen, new floors, put her in a special little, at that time, one of those special fireplaces, you know.
The pellets.
Yeah, put in one of those high efficiency pellet fireplaces, so didn't have to mess with the wood. You know, no single one wants to be hauling wood out.
Right.
son got her pellet stove. She thought it was so impressive.
Instead of the
Yeah.
203K
Yeah.
program.
So good program. We know it well. Did quite a few of them up in the area during that time. So
That's awesome. And you could meet your life partner in the process. So there you
So
go.
you got see what
Bonus.
happens. I'm telling you. The possibility.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I have one other question. So let's say I already own a house and I decide one day I'm going to invest in real estate. I want to go to Beth and get a loan for my investment property. What would that look like with you guys? Would you say, Jen, I can't help you with that? It has to be your primary residence. You might want to seek out another lender, or what would you say to me?
That I would say, yeah, let's do it. However,
All right.
if you're doing investment property, 20% down, there's your rule. 20% down, and truthfully, in this market right now, 25 is going to get you better rates.
Okay.
So, and the key to that is what's important for people to understand about that, 20% will get you out of primary mortgage insurance. So that's a conventional loan product, right? So that's your key. And not always is doing the 25% down to get a better rate a win. It depends. Now that's your money. It's your money, so you don't lose it. It's not going to fees. It's not going to the ethers to buy down the rate. It's your money and you get a better rate. So if you're in that position, it makes sense, but you don't want to throw good money at bad. So if you want to hold on to that money, maybe you want to refinance it if the rates get better, but refinancing comes at a cost, a smaller cost, of course, but those are things to consider. So we look at all those variables. If your rent is going to potentially cover where the rates are now, and that 5% additional means more to you than putting on that property right now, the higher rate really won't affect you if your tenant, your rent's going to
The numbers work.
Yeah. So those are the things we look at. So those are conversations because sometimes it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Pay the higher interest rate and let it go. The difference.
Okay. Yep. We totally agree with you on that. So what would you be looking for from me as this investor, putting down 20%? Are you looking for tax returns, pay stubs, looking at my income, or are you looking at the deal? Tell me what that looks like.
We look at it all.
Okay.
So the W-2s or 1099s, tax returns. So of course, self-employed, you provide more, just is the way it is. And pay stubs or current P&Ls, you have to explain things. One thing I just want to say is, I want to talk about money for a minute. When people have money in a mattress. So
they still do it.
You say you have to show more income, and they go, wait, hold on, I'll be right back. I got to go home and get it on the wall.
So what do they do? It's in your picture of it, Beth?
Oh my gosh, in a box, and
a box of money.
Yes, and I'm like, oh dear Lord, what are we gonna do now? And all I have to say is, when you're talking to your lender, it is so important to connect with someone you trust, because we have to know everything. Nothing can be a secret. Nothing can be hidden, because we're the only ones that can fix it. So we're not the underwriters who are going to squash your deal. We're not the ones saying, don't do it. I'm the one saying, please tell me everything so I can help you handle it, so we can overcome it. There's this thing called seasoned funds. Seasoned means just like if you're seasoning a steak, you're making it just perfect. Seasoned funds means it needs to be in the bank. It needs to be in the bank for a certain amount of time, depending on the loan program. You have to allow us the ability to help you overcome that if it's an issue. So that's great. People like to keep money at home. I get it. I think, it just is what it is. However, when you're becoming an investor, you need to show me the money, not in a picture in a box. But we can help you. You just need to trust your lender. You need to tell them everything so that we know how to work with what you're handing us.
Because it's going to show up. Whatever it is, it's going to pop up.
Well, one of the things when they go through our program, Beth, we do have a part where we get into money, the finances, money and personal finances and stuff. And here's the reality anyway. Anybody that's still keeping money in a box under the bed, with inflation being what it is, you keep it under there long enough, it's going to disappear.
Yeah.
It's not like you might as well wallpaper with it. What I'm saying? You have all these dollar bills that are worth like $1.
Right. I have a belief, cash is king until it runs out. And people forget that. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, cash is king until it's gone. And cash today is like an anomaly sometimes. I mean, it's like these people are like cash, they don't even know what to do with it. There's so many people that don't even accept it,
Yeah.
with the way currency is handled, now. So it is king. Credit will save you when money can't, when cash can't. And
That's good.
it is so important that people learn that, because I'm telling you, I still have young people who have $15,000, $20,000 cash at home. And I'm like, first off, that's incredibly irresponsible, because the circle you're still in, you haven't figured out who your people are and who your people aren't. And then you're still having, lots of company and, the big impromptu party, and you've got money in a mattress.
And then the other thing is they like to flash everything, so they tell everybody everything. They're on social media, probably showing themselves flashing the wad of cash.
Yeah.
And then the first folks on there thinking, oh, they got that at the house.
It rained.
What time is it? Oh, it's 12:51. I'll be over there at 12:54 because I know the money's in the house right now.
It's problematic.
It's
problematic. And I like to really get them, help people understand that, that's old school. They're hearing from their parents or whatever, and that's great. And I'm not ever going to say anything about having money at home. Do whatever, rocks your world. However, if you're looking for investment property and you're looking to build your portfolio and you're looking to do some of these things, you need to have a track record that's clean, that's clear, that's good. That was with your credit, with your employment, with your bank accounts, all the things, your investments, that they're clean. They just need clean. And I helped them with that. Like that's the benefit, like you guys, it's a huge win for what you do, for people to learn and, hop into your program is so important because it's such valuable information. Things that I have to do on the fly, like I'll do credit repair. That's the other thing that first time home buyers or young investors don't recognize. There's no fee for that. There's no cost for that. My goal is to get them to win. And, sometimes you have to say things that they really don't want to hear, or they're not prepared to hear yet because they just want what they want. Well,
Right.
Everything I can to get you there, but we have to get through these steps. So let's do it. Let's do it together. I'm not going anywhere. It's my cell phone. I work off my cell phone. My cell phone has been the same number for 100 years. It's going to stay that way because, when people, that's how we roll. That's just how, that's how it is today.
People ask us sometimes, they're like, do you have another number, a primary number? I'm like, the number I gave you is primary, secondary. It's the third number. It's the emergency number. It's every number, and it's the only one I have.
You reach me,
So no one does the landlines anymore. It doesn't seem anyway. But I know our time is blown by. But I do have a question that you brought up, something that made me want to address, and that is we get a lot of self-employed people, okay, where they're these small business owners. They own a paint company or lawn care or whatever the case may be, and they're not really, what we see is they're not always set up properly, totally. They might even have an LLC, but that's a little difficult because they're not paying themselves a paycheck. Now, just speak to that. They make, in some cases, decent amount of gross income for the year, but what's your recommendation for that, and how do they get themselves ready so they can actually get qualified?
How can they tighten up before they come to you?
Pay taxes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Oh, definitely.
You've got to pay some taxes. The thing about it is we as self-employed and entrepreneurs and what have you, I mean, granted now I'm kind of both an employee and self-employed. Your taxable income, that's where the misnomer is. It's called taxable income because that's what you can qualify with. So if you're not paying taxes on any of your income, there's nothing for us to use to qualify you with. So to your point, when the goal of somebody who's self-employed is to write off as much as possible. I mean, that's the whole goal. When you're trying to purchase, you need to have a history of having some taxable income. Like, what did you pay taxes on? You're just going to have to get used to paying some taxes. And so if your goal is to still have what you've had in your pocket from paying the least amount of taxes, then you need to up your game in your business and make that much more so you can pay taxes on that amount of money. That's what
Mhm.
we need to see. We have to use taxable income. So
Right,
you
so
can,
you need to see
when you're
taxable
writing your,
income. So here's the thing that, because we, in the program, so eventually as they mature in the program, the goal for us is to help them reduce their taxes. However, to
correct,
get in and get started,
that's right.
because a lot of what real estate does is it allows you to reduce your W-2 income,
Mhm.
but they don't have any.
Mhm.
So they've got to kind of get over from that side and then get over to the point where you can have W-2 income and then still be able to offset the W-2 income with some of your expenses from being an investor. And so,
Yeah, it gets tricky.
yeah, so, and it gets tricky,
is.
but starting out, these are the things we also try to tell folks that we're dealing with, because they're in different places. Some people might be there,
Mhm.
others might already have invested in a couple, some have a little bit more money in 401ks and self-directed IRAs, and they got some cash they can grab. And so we get them at all different levels,
Mhm.
and we want to try to speak to, with the stuff that the information we give them, to speak to the different levels so people know what they need to do
I
to
mean,
get
and
to the
Beth
next
would do
step.
the pre-qualification consultation time,
Right.
and they can kind of go through and see where they are, and she would recommend to them what they need to do.
Correct.
to move forward.
Correct. And then we're not tax advisors. However, I'm not a tax advisor. However, it's simple math in some cases. If you have a W-2 job, that's great, and you own a business on the side because you're growing a portfolio, if that is in the negative, it's coming out of that tax income,
Mhm.
so it's going to
Yeah.
reduce that income. So that's the thing. So that's
Okay.
why I'm saying, well, while you're positioning exactly what you just said, Rod, while you're positioning yourself for the win, you've got to start there. Once you're growing up and taking those amazing
Right.
write-offs and benefits,
Yeah.
that's a different level. That's
Right.
already just exactly what you said. Then you can manage it all because your taxable income can support everything else that you're doing. And then now you can take those bigger deductions. But whenever it's first starting out, it is challenging because people
How to
don't
get in. Yeah.
I own my own business and they know they've got cash coming in. Now, we do have other loan programs. We can get into bank statement loans and all those things. It's totally different beast. So
Okay.
higher interest rates, their requirements and guidelines are a little bit different. There are programs out there for people who are self-employed who have put themselves in that position in the tax situation. And yes, they can still get started. Yes, is it going to be higher rates and stuff? Yes, because it's a higher risk. Do they
Yeah.
have to be positioned sometimes with larger down payments, depending on credit score? Yes, sometimes no. So there are programs out there that can get them started, even if they put themselves in that position. Because there's nothing worse than saying to them, okay, well, we need to see you claim taxes for 2 years. You know what I mean? You can't just say, oh yeah, it's only 2 years. Like, well, you need to talk to your tax advisor and ask them what's the best path for you. You're trying to purchase a home.
That's good to know. And it's good to know that there are other programs out there, and bringing in that tax advisor is definitely key, to have that plan. And we do teach that in our course, is that you need a tax advisor, not just a CPA, that can sort of meet with you at the top of the year and plan the year out on how you're going to move forward. So that's all so good, Beth. You've shared so many good nuggets today,
Absolutely.
and we're excited about sharing this interview with our students and stuff. And we'll have to have you come back on throughout the year and give us the latest updates of what's going on in the market and all that kind of good stuff. Because real estate is always doing its thing. It's up and down,
Ebbs and
around the corner, and it does ebb and flow. So thank you for being so good at what you do and providing us with such valuable information. I don't have any more questions. Do you have any more
No,
questions?
just again, yeah, absolutely. I echo the same thing. Thank you
Okay.
so much. I mean, and it's really good to be able to present or help people to know that there's very seasoned people in all industries.
Mhm.
And we try to align ourselves with people that really have, a broader range of experience and some depth,
Mhm.
because, you run into things sometimes, and if you're with people that don't have anything to pull from, it's just
Yeah, they
don't
can
have
bring
the
any
background.
value to the
So
table.
we like to have people like yourself and other
Mhm.
folks that we deal with that can really answer questions and dig into some of the things that, a lot of times other folks just don't know.
Yeah.
So really
Be
appreciate
able
that.
to scratch
Yeah.
the surface today. I know you couldn't go real deep and stuff, and every case is different. So we would encourage anyone who wants to reach out to Beth. How can they find you, Beth? If anyone wanted to reach out and talk to you about the possibility of working with you and getting pre-qualified for a loan. How
Well,
can
I'm
they reach?
retired of mortgage services, and of course, I operate on my cell phone. So
Well,
there's that.
we'll have our guy put your information at the bottom
Yeah,
too when we do the
that's
video.
perfect.
Okay.
And we'll do that and put your stuff up so anybody that wants it to be able to do that. And we thank you so much. So I think we're
Thank you.
going to close out today and just we appreciate your time.
Thank
Any
you so
closing
much.
words?
Yes, thank you, thank you. I appreciate it, and I would be honored to come back and do anything I can. I appreciate you guys so much, and I'm excited for you
Okay.
and your students. So
Awesome.
All right.
Yes,
Thank you so much,
Well,
Beth. We'll talk
bye-bye.
soon, okay?
sounds great. Thank
All
you.
right. Bye-bye.